Hello and welcome to this video. This is going to be 22A, an offshoot, I guess, or a deep dive into abundance, which was the topic for my episode 22 from Comprehending Consciousness, a series which I've created hopefully as tour the iceberg for newbies or for people who are newly waking up, or even if you've been awake for a long time and this topic's new to you, or it's not even new and you just want to hear a different person's take on it, right? I make these videos, I guess, to give my perspective. A lot of times I feel the topics that I cover, I have heard misrepresentations about it in a lot of places, and so I choose them kind of to clear the ground and get some truth or honest assessments going and real conversations too, right, about these topics, because that's the biggest part really to me, is hopefully that it inspires others to dig deeper on their own time and at their own level to see what these things mean to them and get to the truth for them. I'm getting to my truth by making these videos. So yeah. This one happens to be a deep dive. I did Abundance for 22, and if you haven't seen it, I definitely suggest checking it out. I'll link it below. The reason I wanted to do a deep dive on this topic specifically is just because I feel like it is very misunderstood, and I have misunderstood it myself for so many years that now that I am grasping the truth in it, I just want to share it with others, and hopefully if people are feeling the same way that I was or coming from the same kind of avenues, you might find some support or guidance, to see how when we change the definition or the conception we have around a term, it can really shift and move around so many things in our inner world, and then in our direct world. Even these changes, these shifts, they spark like catalysts, changes and little disruptions and newness in your direct world, and miracles happen, and life happens, and you live and you progress, and you can actually enjoy it when you understand there's a purpose to it, right? When you understand there is there's more substance to it, I guess, is what I am hoping to offer. And especially, I feel like I kind of cleared the air in the original episode. I talked a lot about, how abundance isn't amassing a lot of things. It's not financial security, and it doesn't come from material objects. It is actually frequency. It's an inner knowing. It's a truth, a vibe that you can connect with and use to call harmony and balance into your life. And so that's a little bit about what I want to get into kind of here in this video, because as I noted before, those Comprehending Consciousness videos, I try to keep them short, and I really want to keep them on a first step kind of level for new people, or asleep people even, who might be kind of still, waking up. So when I do a deep dive or like this, I call it a little A, I really think it's for people who are interested in this topic and who are ready to hear more and who grasp that first level. So that's why, especially with abundance, like I said, I want to share more about the energetic understanding of it, and also give a bit of practice points or workings from my own individual experience, my own life, that maybe people might be able to resonate with, learn from. So with that said, I will get right into the first thing that I feel is the base layering. I briefly touched on it in the original episode, and it's the clearing of space and the honest seeking of a space where we could critically evaluate things with as much acceptance and unconditional love as we can, muster and offer. So immediately when we hear abundance, we think of a bunch of money, usually, gold, silver, fiat currency, stocks, bonds, 401ks, pensions, and all these things. We think of having, a stockpile of food, a lot of land, a lot of items, whatever sort of material objects and accessories, apparel, having whatever it is that you could possibly think of that you would want, and more of it, always having more and more. And that in itself is where the great inversion comes in, right? And that's what the clearing of the air, the getting back to honesty is about. It's seeing that blatant turning upside down, the blatant lie that's taking place, right? Everybody saying, hey, the emperor is butt naked. We don't like the looks of him. Put some clothes on. Like, when we hear abundance and we immediately think of that, all these things, right? It translates to security, to long-lasting life and protection and safety. And those vibrations and frequencies, those concepts, they really come from an energetic intention space of fear, of worry, lack. And lack in itself is kind of the opposition to abundance, right? And when we start to honestly look at what lack and abundance really encompass, and most importantly, when we have amassed a lot, we will start to realize that it doesn't really fill that hole. It's kind of like, it really sucks to see everybody has to learn the hard way, but at the same time, like, there's no two ways about it, really. And I just feel that's, we come to this earthly, physical 3D realm space to do these workings and work through these hard things and be involved in them, and the discomforts and the etching away, and the hard lessons and the bumps, the bruises that come along the path of learning things for yourself. So many of us are stubborn and hard-headed, and I speak from such a place of experience and great knowing of that, and also from unconditional love and humble humility that comes with the great falls and the great realization of true worth and true sovereignty. Because like I said, we so many of us have to amass everything, or do that seeking forever, that needing of more and more, and getting it, and to realize that there's still some kind of gaping hole there. And then you're left with the search of, what is that? Why can't I fill that? And so that can be a huge awakening period. It can be a turnaround of the lens for many to do inward seeking, introspection, right? And sometimes it can just harbor another liar's loop in there where you refuse to do that kind of seeking at all, or to acknowledge that that's what's taking place, this empty hole pit that you can't really fill. Instead of using that as motivation to do internal work and to seek those things that could fill that hole, there's that chance of turning it into a liar's loop, like I like to call it, putting blinders on and just refusing to acknowledge that inner work that needs to be done. And so you just continue outward seeking and more external gratification and more. There's something strange going on with the electric here. I hope I don't lose power. Well, I'd lose my lights and I wouldn't be able to see. And I do these videos in one take, like so. Anyways, I'm going to keep going. Hopefully it's not distracting to people or myself here. And that was a pattern interrupt because then I've lost my space. Oh, right. Okay, so we're amassing more, and sometimes we refuse to even acknowledge that. And we just cover that hole with some stuff, and we get a new rug over it that looks pretty and feels comfortable for a while, and we indulge in that, and that takes our mind off the pit underneath, and then we just look for more. Or we point our finger outwards at some of these close, direct relationships we have in our lives, and we start blaming them, or we get wrapped up in dramatics out there and the social networks of drama, and in that in itself can sometimes just be the greatest distraction, and that liar's loop just will spin on, and you'll wonder why you have such a negative thing going on in your life, and all this kind of negativity just like hovers over you. Nothing really changes for you. You never really get anywhere. But it's because you're refusing to get to that inner hole in there and go climb in your heart center and dig around and find yourself in there and allow yourself to be yourself and do that journey for yourself only, and for the gratification that is, to do that for yourself, that ultimate act of self-love. When you can get to that place of seeing what that ultimate act of self-love really is, and you want to do it, or you've started doing it, then we can talk about abundance, and then we can break away the mind control parameters, these locks and all these crazy stigmas we have put on top of them. Because if you don't, and you can't tap into positivity, self-love, at least you can't do that. You don't want to do that bit of seeking. Well, you're just not ready. Your intention's not there, and it just won't evolve for you at this time. And everybody's on different consciousness awareness levels, and we're on different paths at different speeds, different levels to the game, right? So in that we have to really respect others, and you need to respect yourself. So take your time to ruminate and find what feels real and true to you. And when you can get to that space, then you can find out the truth behind this thing I'm talking about, abundance, not being ever coming from external things. It is not about an external item. Not one little thing has to do with true feeling of abundance. It is a frequency, a vibe, a feeling within you. It comes from connection to source, the universe, God, whatever you like to see that as, the spirit realm, the ether, before, the infinite creator, when we remember and reunite with that sovereign chord, then that's abundance. Because you remember you have this eternal flame inside of you, the soul essence here, that is so much more than the body, and so much more than this in this lifetime, this journey here. You are a fractal piece of source, and the whole is a beautiful collection of every part, and so with that kind of explanation and ground set, I just want to talk just a bit about the blatant inversion kind of that happens, and how we can trick ourselves, and how we can allow our minds to align so much with the shadow and the negative agenda, and the tactics and techniques of the 3D overlay, this negative overlay of the matrix we're all in, right? We're bombarded with this reality of material items, and the falsification and inversion of true abundance. And if you haven't heard me talk about servitude versus sovereignty, and negative and positive polarities, I will link below some podcasts and talks I've done on that, because understanding service intention is crucial at this time in place. And if we could really get down to the nitty-gritty there, and to see things for what they are and call them for what they are, I just think it could be, that's the path through the thorn bushes, through the brambles or whatever. And to call this inversion of abundance what it is, the falsification here is that you're not worthy. You don't last forever. You're not eternal. You are only worth as much as you have, and it's all or nothing. Winner takes all, survival of the fittest, king of the hill, cutthroats to the top thing happening. And this is just such a great lie, and it runs the show here, basically. It ties directly to the initial inversion. What creates the dark side? What makes duality? The initial lying. That you are not part of source. You are not a connection of anything. You are you. You are separate, and you are only as significant or as powerful as you make yourself. And with that initial lie comes a whole bunch of new rules, comes a whole new way that the whole universe works, sort of. This is why we have duality here, right? And so what basically the lie of abundance is built off of that, and it says that you're not eternal and you're not worth enough. And especially in today's world, it really means you cannot be abundant or wealthy or well off or happy, successful, without having some sort of financial backing behind you, and having paper degrees behind you, and having experts and officials with check marks next to their names saying that you are worthy. That's the only way you get it. And again, it's the template of the slave master. They've taken the original connection that we have with source, and minimalized it and contorted it into this master, slave, creator, creation kind of model. And with that comes the denial of your sovereignty and your worth and your abundance, your natural abundance. So the more that we can recognize that, the more that we can see that is the great lies trying to be fooled upon us all at all times. And if you choose to see the truth and you choose to value your worth, you'll orientate your life a lot differently. And your whole energetics, your intentional body vessel, like that you occupy in your space all day, will start changing. It will emanate a different resonance, and it will call forth outside with the universe, ring-ding along, opportunities and possibilities that are aligned with that sovereign worth, that place in higher frequency. The universe is, oh, she's ready, she hears you, she's calling forth her purpose, her worth, and that, like a key, unlocks different doors. And so from my personal experience, I wanted to just briefly give kind of an outlay of examples here, to show how making that energetic and cognitive change of thinking and working has really totally shifted my personal life, and just how I feel every day, how I live, and the level of happiness and abundance and worth that I feel, right? So, from my personal perspective, I came from sort of like a poverty mentality. I grew up and was raised in America, in a lower class, sort of poor family. Not totally low income, and I didn't grow up in the projects living on welfare, government assistance. Like, I had a lot of friends who did. But I was lucky enough that my grandmother raised us mostly. My grandmother had a home that she, the home she was born in, she lived in, and she bought when she was married, and she was the last child. She got the home. That's the way things went, sort of. Back then with large families, the first or the last kind of took over the homestead, right? My grandmother took over the home, and my dad was raised there with his brothers and sisters, and they left, and my dad stayed. And, but without getting into too much of like the whole history of it, because I'm going to touch more, I want to touch more on my heritage of poverty when I talk about death of cultures, and when I bring in the historical outline of the archons and how they really kind of use these destructive tactics over time and place. And I want to use my personal history along with American version of that to really portray the poverty template within the slave model that they use. So, with just sticking to the abundance thing, I grew up in sort of a poverty lack mindset, and in a lower income struggling family, with one parent, with just my dad and my grandmother, and my dad was, grew up in the love hippies era of America, and became kind of like a hippie counterculture person. And then, by the 80s, we had a crack epidemic here in the United States, and that really swept over everything, and really, between my mom and my dad at that time, kind of just disrupted everything and ruins families, just like it ruins so many families. So my grandmother mostly raised us, but it made for a tight budget, and it also made for my dad, who was like a landscaper, with a very low income. It's always penny pinching. It was always chasing behind. I grew up watching, the crumb picking before things were due, and the monthly, all of the chasing the bills and stuff. And I was always very conscious of that. It had a huge effect on me, and it became truth and reality to me that, money doesn't grow on trees. Everything has to be, really tried really hard for. You can never get ahead. It's just never enough. Nothing's ever enough. So many of these things, that were really just ingrained in me from such a young age that I never questioned, and that I knew to be truth, because it was very true in my world. And as I got older and I became a mother, and I, wanted to take my life in a different direction than I felt was being pushed upon me, I felt really stuck in a chain cycle of just negativity and going nowhere, and, drug abuse, and just being really down on yourself, that the entire poverty mindset really is like a hangman's noose that you just dangle all your life in, slowly dying, slowly suffocating. But I saw it, thank goodness. And I wanted to change, and I wanted to do differently. And, I had awakenings, and I had a spiritual connection, and I wanted to seek positive things. I had an intention for seeking out positive experiences, and trying my hardest to do things differently and opposing than the way that my parents were confronted and made to do things. I thank my parents and just everything that I have had as a life experience. I'm so grateful for them, because while things might have been uncomfortable and I wouldn't have chosen them to be that way, and I felt great dis-ease and all types of problems going through it. Now, to look back at it, I am so grateful for those hard lessons, and for the wonderful examples and of what not to do, and that great notion that there's always a different choice, that I can do something different. I was blessed with that, and it's taken me. My oldest son's going to be 16 at the end of this month, November here. And so I feel I've been on this sort of awakening journey since I chose to change my life and to have him and to make different choices. And then, really, it took me quite a few years to even start chipping away. And I'm not going to get into my whole life story here, but I will just say that by my mid-20s, I was at a choice. I had made some choice points and gotten to places. I was a single mom with my first son at 18, and I put myself through college. I got scholarships. I worked really hard. I worked 2 jobs a lot of times, or at least 1 job, and I was trying to make all these choices to make different things and align myself, working in a hospital, in a lab, and pursuing my degrees and things like that. And I happened to feel like I had seen these signs that were taking me to make choices to be with a certain person, get into a relationship with somebody. And it seemed to be, at first, everything that I would want, like materialistically and superficially, of appearances. And I, ended up going for it. And long story short, I learned the hard way that money doesn't buy happiness, and that no amount of things and places and trips and all the things that I had thought would make me happy, right? That I was working towards it. If I had the money to do, and if I had these clothes, and if I could do this and live in this place and drive this car or whatever, if I was living that life, I would be happy. And I was not. And in fact, I was miserable. And I wasn't myself. I felt so disconnected and not true to my inner calling, to my own person, to who I felt I was supposed to be. And that was a pivotal point. That was 2012. And it was a pivotal point for so many in their lives at that point, different ways that 2012 shook so many of us. But by the end of the year, I had realized that I needed out, and I was, I needed to make different choices. And thank goodness I had support systems outside of that. And I was able to get myself out. But with zero money, with zero anything. I had left my job at the hospital because, I was going to just be like a stay-at-home mom or something. Or just pursue my studies mostly is really what I was focused on at that time. But I had no savings or anything like that. And I basically just left with my son, who was he was 5 at the time. Now I'm getting getting way too into my own personal description story, but whatever. I left with him and with bags of clothing, but it was worth it to me. It was really I knew that I had strayed so far from my true self and from, I had a real slap in the face of what I was giving up for this falsity of this image of a perfect life and relationship and money and home and a nice house or whatever, and like all the things society, and this poverty mentality had told me to go for, and I just, it's not worth it to me. It's not my heart, my soul is worth it. I was lucky enough at that time to reconnect with, my husband now, my first love, really, my sort of my high school sweetheart, my soulmate, my life partner, somebody who the universe knew it aligned us in this way at the end of 2012 to reconnect and be together at just the right time for both of us, where we were equally in need of support to get us to remember who we really are and how strong we really are and what good people we really are, and what, we could have true purpose and meaning. And then, yeah, after that huge turning point for me, with with the abundance and financial kind of aspect of it, I decided to really go for what my heart was saying, and to live my life, to enjoy my life, and to let that lead me, instead of, pigeonholing myself into this studies and degree and following where I felt like I should go, just to prove something, I started to realize the truth. And after that, from 2013 on, I really became truth-oriented and really wanted to do the best for myself and to find my true self. And it took years and years after that, to get to where I'm at even today, And since then, I have a son with my husband now, so we have 2 sons, and we've raised them, and we've really struggled a lot to be working parents and to pay for everything and to cover rent and make things work. It's been a struggle. I had to work even through the last, 5 or 10 years of my life, of thinking that still I have to chase the carrot on the stick. I have to amass this house with a white picket fence and land and huge savings and a retirement fund and college funds, and have all, be able to give my sons everything they want in order to be a good person, to be a good parent, And that was a whole nother realm of mind control that I really just angled myself into a new alleyway. I thought I had broken out, and I thought I had, gotten away, and I know money doesn't buy happiness now. Checked that lesson off, I realized more and more that my next coming lessons were deeper than just, money doesn't buy happiness. It is, well, what is happiness? And, how do we untangle and pull away these really tight anchors and cords of, societal norms and pressures and expectations that really come in, from the negative agenda, from the 3D matrix, and from all around what it is to be abundant and successful and good people and good parents and health and wealth and all of the wonderful things that we want, right? So, over the last couple of years, definitely, I have, maybe the last 5 years or 3 years even, I've really started to pull back the layers of mind control expectations I had from this poverty mindset, right? And to get at the guts of what really makes me, or what I feel, makes a good person, a good mother, a good parent, a good daughter, a good wife. And that's how I have come, around to this understanding of abundance being a frequency and being something that could never come from external items. Because no matter what you come against, what obstacles are put in front of you, the situations you find yourself in, the losses that you face, you are still you at the end of the day, and you still wake up in the morning, and you're still going to take that first breath in the morning alive and see the sunrise and have to say what's next. And with that knowing, why choose to feel not enough? If instead you choose to have faith in that one truth, that just being alive, just being here in this reality and realm as an individual, experiencing some kind of path and journey, that right there bestows abundance. That right there has ignited the eternal flame inside of you, which is always flowing outwards. It's always there. It can never be stifled. Like I said at the beginning of the video, right? If we make these choices, when we come to that kind of understanding, then when you're faced with financial worries, or you're faced with upsets, or worst case scenarios, things that you think are going to be absolutely break you, when you're faced with that moment, and you get through, and you're just still there, there's a strength that just cannot be, it's undeniable. It's so rooted and so deep inside of one that you cannot, you can't fake it, you can't mistake it, and you cannot relay it to another until they know it. And you can look at somebody and tell if they know it or not, if they have faith, if their faith has been tested. Because when faith gets tested, faith always wins. And if you have strong doubt in that, then you haven't been tested enough yet. And you're skirting the outer layer. You're not living life to the fullest. And unfortunately, you'll live in your doubt shadow forever, because you're never going to fully test yourself, and so you'll never get the chance to even learn the great beauty, that faith, that abundance, that your eternal flame is there. It will always be there. If you don't take the leap, you never know. Or if you never hit your rock bottom, and you're never there long enough, that you have to scrape yourself up and find that well of love that resides down in your rock bottom, you're missing out. And it's easy to fall for lies. It's easy to be mind controlled. It's easy to run in a liar's loop when you refuse to see the truth. When you refuse to acknowledge there's more out there. There's more to you. There's more depth to you. Because at the end of the day, the whole thing, this whole ride, whatever it is, it's all a reflection of you and what you determine, what you intend, how you feel about yourself, and the worth that you see, in yourself. that gets reflected and displayed out in your direct world. So if you find it hard to believe that abundance doesn't come from items, if you really feel so strongly that you have to have X, Y, and Z before you're abundant, unfortunately, you will feel like that, and you're one of those who's got to learn the hard way. Welcome to the club. See ya on the flip side. We're all waiting over here. It's a beautiful place to be in, that of faith and that of understanding, that tests are only as hard as you make them. And if you're prepared and you understand the content, then you never fear a test. You don't fear a pop quiz. You don't fear a catalyst or a disruption or an obstacle when you have lived through your worst case scenario. And I speak from example many times. So many things that I thought were my ultimate worst case scenarios. Losing everything, not having a home, not having anything, having zero money, not knowing where food's coming from for tomorrow. I've been in situations like that. I've lived through them, and I'm still here. And I am happier than ever. And it all comes from the sovereign space inside of me that is a true connection to source and all of things that are positive in my own abundance. I will say here at closing that, like I did mention, it's a perspective, it's conception. Our life is what you make it. Your reality is as real as you choose. And to let others dictate how you see reality is foolish. And it will only come back to create negativity inside of you because it's based off an initial lie, right? You are disengaging or distorting your own sovereign worth in order to be of servitude to something else, some other idea, something bigger and better than you that knows better or is better than you. And that, at the end of the day, is, what we come here to learn about. It's the soul's evolution. So it is a word from the wise that these trip-ups, tests, the catalysts, they never end, and they will never. So if you just could accept that and see it as an adventurous challenge that you have set up for yourself, then your intentions, your energetic vibe of how you go about your day and how you move through the ether will be totally shifted. And you'll see different opportunities come in. You'll see different things from the exterior world becoming real possibilities for your direct world because you've made that shift in your own reality. However, it's also so important for us to remember and to understand that just like I gave my own experience, right, where I thought I was understood, I thought I got the check mark of that money doesn't buy happiness thing, like in 2011-12. And then it turned into a whole other, underneath there was just a multitude of workings and levelings of different ways that I had to see that from so many other angles and perspectives to really get down into the nitty-gritty of why I had these assumptions and really where they're more rooted in than other places, and to break them away. And all that working doesn't happen at once, it takes time. And just like I say so many times, you know, you wouldn't go and turn all the lights off in your house and say, I'm going to clean my house from top to bottom today, and it's got to get done right now. And that's it. That's what we're doing. And then go into a dark house and just like start moving everything around, bring it all in down into the center, and then think that it's going to be put back into every room like alphabetical organization, perfect, all in one day too. That, you know, we can't go into healing and seeking abundance for yourself like that. You know, you can't think that you're going to do 5 meditations and then just all of a sudden be connected to your abundance. You know, it takes, you know, weeks, months, days, years sometimes of commitment, dedication to working through these things for yourself, and to be confronted with different challenges, to face frictions, to face challenges and implement the differences that you want to see if it works that way, that now you want to try it from this angle and it didn't work that way and you have to try it from this angle, and then, oh, I'm still facing, you know, feeling disease about you know, monthly bills, so now I have to face it at this way, and oh, now I'm like worrying about I'm not worrying about month to month, but I'm worrying about the future. Now I'm not worrying about the future anymore, but, you know, I'm worrying about retirement or whatever. You know, there is a multitude of levels to working through and connecting with abundance, and breaking out of, you know, these poverty mindset or the victimization, the slave template, all of these kind of really strong mental mind control constrictions that they put upon us. They, you know, they took years and years to build up, right? So they take a while to break down as well. So with that, I really am going to wrap this video up. I hope that you enjoyed this deep dive into abundance, and I hope that I have given just a little bit of my own personal background about where I have come from and how I have really struggled through, you know, the hard way of learning the worth of real abundance, and how important that it is that we could all kind of just clear away that the frivolous, frothy, sparkly top layer here of abundance and get down into the real goodness underneath, right? And see that just from my own personal experience here as the example, right? You don't have to have X, Y, and Z to feel abundance. Have your goals, have your dreams. I have mine. I'm not saying I'm stagnant. And that was another huge working that I had to get through in my own mindset to work with, you know, because I had it in my mind, well, oh, if you're not pushing forward to your goals, you're not getting anywhere. You know, if you're happy with where you're at, you'll never get higher. And that's not true at all. The happier you are with where you are right now, the more you want to build more, the more you want to share, the more that you get out there, the more motivated and better you feel every day, and the more dreams you pursue, the more stuff you get done. But again, great inversions. We need to remember and recognize inversions. When things seem like giant lies and it stinks, it probably is full of lies. So we should clear the air and get back to the truth of it. For our own health, right? And for our own well-being. So yes, I am a living, breathing example of somebody who lives a very fringe life, sort of off the grid, and I don't, you know, I don't really interact with a lot of systems and structures out there. You know, I left my corporate job. My kids don't go to public school. They're homeschooled. My husband works for a small business. You know, we are community focused and shop locally, and, you know, we try to be very conservative, and we live within our means. We don't have credit cards. We don't supply that whole credit debt to pay slavery system. We aren't a part of it. We don't feed that. And we try to be, you know, as mindful with our impacts about what kind of things we do put our money towards, you know, and and be as mindful of those things, make the impact in our own direct worlds. And it has created a beautiful reflection of happiness in my life, you know? It's funny because, of course, you know, there's always that shadow inside there that's like, yeah, well, we need a new car, we need this, we need a bigger house, we need, you know, more, and you need more clothes, and oh, if you know, all of these things that it's always there, irking and asking for more friction. But it's a calling to do work on yourself and to say, oh, okay, well, I have a little bit more, you know, honing and toning to do. But it doesn't change the value that I get about knowing about my worth, about my sovereign worth, you know. The shadows of my own, and those that come at me from society or I feel from external sources occasionally, you know, I really use them as a source of introspection. And I also set a sacred boundary to say, no, thank you. I don't, subscribe, or consent to that ideology that I'm worthless. I know true worth. I know truth. I know my truth and the one truth. And that can never be taken from me. So when those sort of infringing kind of things come in, and I have that shadow sort of irking me or critiquing me in some way, I have a lot more space to thank it for its input, and to also be able to tap into joy and humor and sort of laugh at it and just be like, there is my ridiculous, you know, extreme critic going off again about like lack. And just laugh it off and remember the truth, because, you know, that's all it takes is just that reconnection with the truth to realign, and you call back your power and you call back your positivity in the moment. And at the end of the day, isn't that really what, like, our life should really be about? The pursuit of happiness, you know, enjoying the present moment. At least if you're seeking positive alignment, you know, and growth. Because if you're not, if you're choosing to seek negativity, then of course you are avoiding the present moment because it feels like crap. And that's a whole other thing. Like I said at the very beginning, if you're interested in hearing more about polarity and sovereignty and all of that, I have some podcasts and blogs and topics on it. I will link some of those below. Thank you so much for tuning in on this little side video on my personal perspective of abundance, with myself as a working, living example of, you know, the craft, the practice of breaking out of poverty mindset and gaining your own positive abundance and self-love, right? So I hope I inspire you to do that in your own life. I hope you can assess yourself with honest, open eyes and heart and see like the abundant being that you are in your own world, and feel grateful for the blessings that you have. And when you do that, you will see great multitudes of magnificent miracles happening in your life. So thank you so much again for joining me today, and I hope you'll tune in to my channel next time to catch me. I will be continuing on my negative agenda tricks and traps videos series over on BitChute. So if you are catching this on YouTube, I'll link those below too, so you can find me over on BitChute for those if that interests you. Things about mind control and breaking out of them, and sort of like the tactics and techniques that the archons use. And like I said earlier, I will be going a bit through the historical references and using myself and white America as a template to look at this sort of death of cultures template that the archons have used so gracefully over time and space, right? So you can find me over on BitChute for that if that interests you. If not, find me on Telegram, where I share daily positivity infographics and memes. T.me Marie Speaks, or you can find me over on my website directly at amariespeaks.com, where I have tips, references, and tools, all free, on all types of things: introspection, spirituality, and happiness. So I hope you have a beautiful day. I'll talk to you next time.